Now I know what you're all thinking. Hey Aidan, George won at the weekend, where's the review video? But the truth is, I'm just not feeling particularly good today. I feel a bit ill, so I don't want to stretch the old noggin a bit too hard with my old opinions. So I thought I'd do what any other YouTuber would do in this kind of situation, where they need to get something out, and then let's do a list video. But, you know, I'm actually going to try and keep this relevant and interesting instead of just copping out. Because through doing all this stuff with the motorsport history thing, you come across many weird facts and stats. This is the only guy to win in a car named after him. This is the first time this happened. This is the first time that happened. This is a unique record that never be beaten again, and that sort of thing. So this video is basically a collection of the weird and wacky facts and stats that I've picked up over the last 4 or 5 years of doing storytime. Stuff that is absolutely guaranteed to impress your friends.
Not a guarantee.
So to kick things off, we have the back-to-back winner. And speaking of unique records, Damon Hill holds one of those. He is the only person to win the same Grand Prix back-to-back, going from 1995 into 1996. The Australian Grand Prix from 1985 up until the end of the 1995 season was held at Adelaide before being moved to Melbourne for 1996. Damon won the final race of the 1995 season. He then won the opening race of the 1996 season, meaning that he's the only driver to win back-to-back Grand Prix in the same country. Now I know you might be thinking, but Schumacher won Aida and Suzuka, but that was the Pacific Grand Prix leading into the Japanese Grand Prix. Damon won Australian Grand Prix, Australian Grand Prix. Yeah, that's a bit of a technicality one, but it's still interesting. Next, the odd one out. Since the Formula 1 Constructors' Championship began in 1958, there has been a total of 48 Constructors' Championship winning cars built here in the UK. The remaining 17 have not. Ferrari accounts for 16 of those, and the remaining one, the 17th, is Matra. The car was built in France. So when Matra won the Drivers and Constructors double in 1969, it meant that it became the only non-Ferrari car to be built outside of the UK and win the Constructors title. Now obviously teams like Mercedes and Red Bull are German and Austrian registered teams, but the cars are built here in England. Third on the list, USA, USA, USA. The United States has had 56 drivers participate in a World Championship event, but those numbers are largely skewed due to the fact that for a time the Indy 500 was part of the Formula 1 World Championship. The most recent American registered car to be on pole position for a Grand Prix was on Saturday, when Kevin Magnussen put his Haas on pole for the sprint race in Sao Paulo. But prior to that, the previous American registered car on pole was in 1975, when Tom Price set the fastest time for the Dutch Grand Prix. The last win for an American registered car was the 1976 Austrian Grand Prix, when John Watson won while driving for Roger Penske. Also in 1976, Shadow swapped their American registration for a British one. And speaking of, the dual nationality winner. When the Benetton family, which owns the clothing company of the same name, bought Tolman in 1985, it then entered Formula 1 for 1986 under a British racing licence, operating its factory out of Witney in Oxfordshire before moving to Enstone, also in Oxfordshire, in 1992. The team would continue to operate under a British licence until the end of the 1995 season, when it switched to an Italian one in 1996 to be more in line with the Benetton family's nationality. Schumacher had gone to Ferrari, and Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger were sent to Benetton from Ferrari to replace him and Johnny Herbert. But then in 1997, Gerhard Berger would win the German Grand Prix in his final year in the sport, making Benetton the only team in Formula 1 history to win a Grand Prix under 2 separate flags. Shadow was the first to swap, but Benetton was the first to win. That team is now Alpine, by the way. Don't know what number we're at, but the next fact is, God save the King. Up until 2022, whenever a British driver or team won a Formula 1 Grand Prix, the British national anthem of God Save the Queen was played, being played for the likes of Jenson Button, Damon Hill, Nigel Mansell and Eddie Irvine. But there is a fun fact here, because when the Formula 1 World Championship began in 1950, the monarch in Britain at the time was King George VI. There wasn't a British Formula 1 Grand Prix winner until 1953, when Queen Elizabeth II ascended to the throne after George VI died in 1952. And while God Save the King was played at the first ever World Championship race in 1950, it wasn't played for a winning driver until 2022, when King George VII won in Sao Paulo. This also means that George Russell is the first British driver to win a World Championship race and not have God Save the Queen played. And speaking of Britain, the winning streak. While it looks like Hamilton's 15 or 16 year one race win a year streak will end this season, there is one streak that is one that you'll probably only know if you take a deep dive into the stat books. Since 1953, a British team or driver has been on the top step of the podium at least once a season. The last time a British driver in a British car won, though, was back in 2012, when Jenson Button won the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix. Jenson was also the last British champion to win in a British car as well. The first was Graham Hill back in 1962. This streak has been going on for 69 years. Nice. Administration issues. When Damon Hill won the 1998 Belgian Grand Prix, a race that will celebrate its 25th anniversary next year, there was a bit of a kerfuffle regarding the national anthems. As you may know, when a race finishes and they go onto the podium, they play the national anthem of the winning driver, followed by the national anthem of the winning constructor, unless the driver and constructor are the same nationality, in which case they just play it once. And if you're as old as I am, you probably know the German national anthem pretty well by now. But when it came to Jordan's big day on that wet Sunday afternoon, the powers that be did not have the Irish national anthem to hand, so they had to play God Save the Queen twice. Which, if you know anything about the history between Britain and Ireland, that must have caused quite a storm, especially since the Good Friday Agreement had just been signed. But even proud Irishman Eddie Jordan wasn't too fazed by it. The team had its base at Silverstone, which is now the Aston Martin factory, and most of the team was British, so it didn't really matter in the end. To him, it was actually just a small thing, and even though Jordan won 4 Grand Prix in their time in the sport, the national anthem was only played twice. Italy and France 1999. When they won their final Grand Prix in 2003, Giancarlo Fisichella was classified in the wrong position. No one's going to notice this bit being done afterwards, it'll be fine. The number 22, 2 from 2. In 2007, McLaren was kicked out of the Constructors' Championship as a result of the Spygate scandal, so in 2008 Hamilton and Kovalainen ran numbers 22 and 23, and in that year Hamilton won the first of his 7 World Championships. The following year Button would do exactly the same thing, winning the championship in a car with the number 22 on it. So 2 British champions in a row in British cars winning the World Championship, both carrying the same number. Yeah, that's quite a well-known one, isn't it? But now we will end where we started, with a Hill. 3 drivers have entered Formula 1 with the surname Hill: Phil, Graham and Damon. Even though out of those 3 only Damon and Graham are related, father and son, and Phil being American, they all won the Formula 1 World Championship. Hill in 1961, Graham in 1962 and in 1968, and Damon in 1996. Now obviously Nico and Keke Rosberg also have a championship to their name, but for 3 guys with the same surname to do it, that's pretty mad. And obviously only 2 of the 3 of them are actually related. It's even more mad when you consider that Phil won in 1961 and Graham won it the very next year. 2 guys called Hill to win in consecutive years and not be related or the same person. So then, a collection of some weird and wonderful F1 trivia that I've accumulated over the years to share with you because, I'm not feeling too great at the minute. I feel quite queasy, to be honest. I might actually have to go back to bed. But if you did enjoy this video, you know what to do. Give it one of these. And if you want to see more from this channel, then you know what to do there as well. Subscribe and get that bell on as well, so you never miss out on anything I do here. Massive thanks as ever to the kind folk at Patreon for the continued support, and if you want to help out with the buying up of historical images for these videos, you can do so by following the link down in the description, where there's also links to Discord and my socials. And if you don't want to do monthly patronage, there is super thanks down there too, if you just want to top up my coffee cup or whatever. So until next time, I've been Aidan Millward, have a great day wherever you live in the world, and I'll see you all again soon for another video.